Thanks to EA for giving me early access. Hi everyone, welcome to my channel and welcome to another Enchanted by Nature speed build. So today I'm showing you another build that I created in the early access version of the game where I just have access to the base game and the new expansion pack. This is not final software, so that's why my username is floating around on screen. I just wanted to get that out of the way. So today I'm back with another more whimsical build. This is in the third neighborhood, or at least for me it's the third one that I'm building in Innisgreen. The neighborhood of Spruceberry Grove, I believe is what it's called. It's a very foresty and whimsical. It's not as magical as the fairy neighborhood, but it comes pretty close. So yeah, this one's very foresty. I think there's a bar or a lounge out here. This is also the area where you'll find a little plant shop, I believe. There's also a really cute used bookshop. That's really, it is a rabbit hole, but so is the plant shop, but it's really cute that it's there. This is also the area where you'll find that one tree trunk, the glass petal tree or something, or the glass tree. I'm not exactly sure what it's called from the top of my head, but that really cute tree where you can actually summon Sims and you'll get like fables to work on. It's a whole gameplay thing that it is just really fun to play through. So that's a thing that you can do here. It is a really pretty neighborhood, very serene and calming and foresty and just, you know, magical in its own way. And this is also the Apothecary area. I mean, I guess you could do that anywhere, but over here you'll find like a little outdoorsy kind of stand where the apothecary guy works, where you can buy cures or have him make a cure for your ailments. And that's why I thought it would be cute to, in this neighborhood particularly, build a little home apothecary. So that's what I'm doing here. I was kind of trying to think of a cute storyline for a sim that's running an apothecary from home. So essentially this is going to be a little home business in that sense, where there's a little apothecary area, but then also a residential area that's partially downstairs, but then mostly upstairs. We'll have like a living room and the bedrooms and stuff, and then a kitchen downstairs. So that's essentially what this is, and that's gonna go really nicely, I think, with the new career that this pack introduces. Oh gosh, now I have to say this correctly. I think it's called the naturopath career, but I'm not exactly, like, don't pin me on that. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but I think that's what it's called. And it's essentially like a little apothecary career where starting at level 2, you can actually also welcome clients on your home lot and help them out here. So if you're familiar with the get to work career where you can be a doctor at the hospital, sick Sims will show up and then you have to like assess them and cure them and like try to figure out what's wrong with them and then heal them. That's essentially how this works too. So sick Sims with ailments will show up on your doorstep and then you're gonna have to figure out what's wrong with them and give them the right cure. So that's really cool. That's a career that you can do. So you can work like that, or you can just go into work like the regular rabbit hole thing that we're used to, or you can work from home. It also has a work from home option. But then starting at level 2, it also has an option where you can actually welcome clients on your home lot and then you can help them out that way. And I think then that makes you money obviously as well. So yeah, that's a really fun thing to do, and that's kind of what I was thinking of when I was building this particular house. So I was trying to make it very whimsical. Dare I say it's maybe even more whimsical than my fairy cottage that I built. That was the very first thing that I did, obviously, when I got my hands on this pack. I built a fairy home. This one is maybe even more whimsical. I'm also building on medium wall height on the ground floor for this one, because this pack comes with really pretty bookcases, like tree looking shelves that I knew from the get-go I wanted to use in the apothecary for this build. So I was like, okay, well then I'm gonna have to build on medium wall height. So I did that, and I just feel like that gives the whole thing a little bit more of a whimsical look and feel. It makes it a little bit more tall. The roofs are very like steep in that sense as well for the most part, so I thought that was really fun. And also the color scheme for this one's a little different. It's a little all over the place, but it's overall just more gloomy. I was trying to go for a darker color scheme here. I'm using that very dark, like deep purple color. That wood texture is just so pretty. And then I'm combining it with a dark, like foresty, mossy green color for the shingles. We're using dark brown roof. roofs. I'm also using dark green roofs, so it has like a mix of purple, green, and brown going on, I think is what the color scheme for this one ends up looking like. And just a whole bunch of little bump outs and a little bit of curb appeal, and just also I ended up using a lot of vines and things on the exterior of this build as well. So I was really channeling my inner whimsical fairy apothecary type of cottage, and I was trying to build that here. This is the third build that I was working on with this pack, so I think at this point I was feeling pretty familiar with the items in this pack and also just the style of builds in general, like little cottages and stuff like that. I kind of knew what I wanted. Instead of just going in and being very hyped about the items in this pack and just see what I can come up with, I kind of knew from the get-go what I was going for with this one, and so there was a little bit more of a plan to it, I suppose, and also I was just feeling a little bit more familiar with the items in the pack, so that obviously always really helps as well. But I think that this turned out so fun. I think that the more darker green colors for the vines and wisteria and stuff that I'm using also worked out really nicely. And then the patterns in the windows are so pretty for some of them. I didn't use the patterned version for all the windows, but I have a few like accent windows where I'm using those really pretty, like the colored like stained glass. Is that what you would call that? I'm not exactly sure, but I just thought that that was so pretty. And then of course I was going crazy with the wisteria and the vines all over the place here. And then the floor plan for this house actually turned out to be a little bit messy. It definitely took me a minute to figure out what I wanted to do for the floor plan for this house. But what I ended up doing was, of course, we have the apothecary downstairs, which essentially just ends up being a skill building room where you can work on your apothecary skill and create the cures for ailments and everything. But then there's also a little pretend shop area with a counter and just a bunch of shelves behind it with like cures and ingredients and little things that are for sale, which they obviously aren't. That's just pretend, but that's kind of what I was trying to go for, like a little apothecary where Sims would go and, you know, just buy their little ingredients or salves or cures, like that kind of stuff. That's kind of what I was trying to mimic, but of course it's just a room with an apothecary table as well, where your Sim can actually practice the apothecary skill and create cures and stuff that way as well. So that's essentially what that is. And then I ended up placing a secret bookcase door into the residential area from there. So there's going to be a hallway with like a staircase, and then the kitchen and dining, and I think a little office as well is what I ended up placing downstairs. And then there's going to be a living room and actually 3 bedrooms total on the second floor. So that's quite a bit of bedrooms for this little house. I didn't think I would have that much space, but I actually ended up having a ton of space here. So that was really nice to do. And then of course here I was going crazy with landscaping, because as you can see, this lot is located in a very woodsy area. There's a lot of trees around and just little pathways and a lot of stones and little fences and everything, and it's just I really like this area. I don't know what my favorite neighborhood is. Of course the fairy neighborhood is just very magical and absolutely gorgeous, so that one is, you know, very unique and just perfect for fairy gameplay. Then there's the coast of Admore, which is a little bit more normal in that sense, but it is still a very cozy coastal neighborhood by the beach where you can do some swimming, and it's you know, it's a really pretty shoreline that I just really like. And then this one is also very unique. Like it's a little bit more whimsical than the coast of Admore neighborhood, a little bit less magical than the fairy one, very woodsy. So I feel like this would also be a really pretty neighborhood for more like occults to come together. I could totally see spellcasters live here too. Maybe fairies and spellcasters would kind of come together here. I feel like that would work really nicely. I also feel like items from the build items from the Life and Death expansion pack would work really, really well here as well. So that's going to be a really cute thing to sort of combine and see what would happen. As you can see, by the way, I was totally going crazy with details on the exterior. I'm doing a lot of plants, but then also just like some other decorations, like all the things that I could find in debug. I also placed that little apothecary or like market stall kind of thing. Unfortunately, you can't really use that in gameplay other than you can hire a vendor for it, but I was kind of imagining that to be a market stall for the Apothecary sim here, and then sometimes that they would have little sales maybe outside. Unfortunately, that's not actually functional, so you can only hire a vendor there, so I just placed it for mostly decorative purposes. And then out here, I placed some picnic tables, a bunch of plants, because for Apothecary, you actually need a bunch of ingredients. So I was kind of pretending that those plants were probably like partially their ingredients and stuff. But you actually, for Apothecary ingredients, you actually need to forage, which is really fun. Your sim can just kind of go around and forage, and then they can find different types of Apothecary ingredients and whatnot that they can then use for their cures. So that's actually really fun gameplay. I really like it. I just really like the natural living gameplay in general that comes with this pack. That's also a skill that you can practice, and the more you practice, obviously the better your sims become at natural living, and that means that they will get more hygiene from bathing in little ponds. They will get more energy faster from sleeping on the ground, that kind of stuff. Like, they'll just get better at it, and it's just so much fun to play through. I just really like that. It's going to be really fun for rags to riches as well. It's going to be really helpful to the point where you basically almost don't really need a house anymore. If your sims are really good at natural living, then they essentially just don't really need a house. They can just live outside, which also makes rags to riches maybe a little bit easier in that sense, which I'm not sure if that's a good thing. But it is a really fun thing to just play around with, and I was definitely thinking that the sims living in this house would also really be great at natural living, even though they do have a regular, I guess, house attached to their Apothecary as well. Or actually, they more so just have an Apothecary attached to their house, because the house, the residential portion of this build is obviously still bigger than the Apothecary. But the Apothecary area is the first one that we're decorating here. So I'm really trying to continue that same color scheme here on the inside with the purple and the dark green colors and the dark wood tones. And these are those tree bookcases or shelves that I was talking about earlier, and they are just so gorgeous. I combined them with some other wall shelves from this pack, and then also the mushroom shelves, obviously. And then I started to clutter up these shelves because I really had a vision here where I wanted to place a bunch of little cures and bottles and potions and all that kind of stuff. I also placed some like emotion potions and stuff on these shelves, and I was kind of pretending that all those items would be for sale here at the Apothecary, which is obviously not the case, so you're just gonna have to pretend. But I think that that's really cute though. So I was just kind of going through debug, trying to find all those potions and ingredients and little bottles and whatnot, and try to clutter it up here. I think it ended up looking really, really fun. I also ended up placing some books. There's also just some books here on these shelves by default already, so maybe those are like skill books or like cookbooks for cures and whatnot that you can buy here. Kind of like a little magic shop in that sense, where you can buy all those things is kind of what I was going for here, and I think it just looks so fun. And then of course I had to place some plants and whatnot here on the inside as well. Also, I really like this stone floor, the mossy stone floor that I'm using, that obviously really matches the purple wood tones that I'm using in here, because it has that same purple color sort of in it as well, and it's just so pretty. And then here on the counter, I tried to find all the Apothecary decorations that I could find, so it looks very cluttered and sort of messy in a way, but that's exactly the vibe that I was going for here. And then I actually could find quite a bunch of debug base game items that looked cute here as well for decorations. So yeah, that's what I was going for. Not only debug, also just regular decorations. And then for the storyline for this build, I was definitely thinking of a single parent basically running the Apothecary shop, and then they have a toddler, because I also decorated a toddler's bedroom in this house. So they have a toddler, they're a single parent with a toddler, and then in the third bedroom, which is more of like a guest bedroom, the way I decorated it, I was thinking that maybe the parent's sibling would also live here, and they kind of run the Apothecary shop together. So maybe one of them is the actual like Apothecary master, like they create all the cures and whatnot, and then the other sim has the like more of the like social skills, and they're better at interacting with the clients and welcoming people in the shop and helping them out and whatnot. So that's kind of the dynamic that I was thinking of. I thought that would be so cute. I was definitely thinking of, if you were familiar with Animal Crossing, I was kind of thinking of the Able sisters. I have built something for this particular dynamic not too long ago before. I just don't remember what build it was, but it was also a home business where I was thinking that one sim would be really good at, you know, the craft, and the other sim would be really good at the social aspect of it all. And that's kind of what I was thinking of for this shop as well. So it's two siblings essentially running the store, and then one of them actually has a toddler, and then the toddler grows up with their parent and then their aunt or uncle. So yeah, I thought that that would be really, really fun. So here in the back of the apothecary, you can see that I created the actual skill building corner, I guess you could call it, where I placed the apothecary table and some of those complementary shelves and whatnot. And I was trying to create some extra storage here as well, just some surfaces to clutter up. And then I placed some decorations and plants, but I definitely wanted there to be enough space for routing here as well. And then downstairs here, attached to the shop, or like in the shop essentially, I also placed a bathroom because I thought that that would be a good thing to have here in the shop as well for clients. I was definitely thinking of businesses and hobbies a little bit. I was kind of thinking of cross-pack compatibility with this one, see how that would play out. So I think that that would somehow work if you were to replace the shelves that I used with some actual retail shelves, and then you slot all your cures and whatnot and your emotion potions that your sim finds or makes or whatever. If you were to slot those to actual retail shelves, then I feel like with businesses and hobbies, you could potentially just open a shop and set browsing and buying items as a business activity, and then your sims would buy, or clients would buy, the cures and whatnot. I think that that would work that way. I'm not actually sure, but I was kind of secretly thinking of that, with that in mind in any case, when I was building this house. So yeah, that was kind of fun to think about. So here you can see that we started on the residential area of the house. So in this shop, we have a secret hidden bookcase door that leads you into a hallway with a staircase, and then the hallway actually leads you into the kitchen here. So we have a really nice dark aesthetic kitchen. I think that purple color is just so pretty, and I really had to go and make everything very matchy. I just thought that was fun. I did actually change the color of the table and chairs because that was just a little too matchy, but I still wanted it to be very dark and gloomy in here, so I went for darker wood tones. And then, of course, I cluttered up the kitchen with a bunch of cookbooks and just little knickknacks. Nothing too crazy because I definitely wanted it to still be functional, so I just placed some plants. As you can tell, I cannot get enough of those little indoor plants that you slot to the mini planters that come with this pack. I think those plants are just so pretty looking. They're absolutely gorgeous, and I'll be using a lot of those from now on actually as well. And then again, I was trying to clutter up my my open shelves here, trying to see what I could find, but I decided to leave them empty for the most part. I just cluttered it up a little bit. And then we have a nice round island counter here where I just placed some more apothecary little decorations. And then we have a 4-seater dining table where I just also placed a bookcase and a light. I love that window in here, by the way. The pattern is just so intricate, and the colored like glass, the stained glass, I think is so pretty. And then the rug with the dragon swatch, you can't really tell because the table is like sitting on top of it essentially, but that dragon swatch on the rug is so pretty. It is so well done, and I just can't get enough of that one. And then here off of the kitchen, we have a small office where I just placed that desk again, and then the matching desk chair. I know these videos, like the items are obviously all very repetitive because I just have the base game and the new pack to focus on, so I'm definitely trying to use all the same items from the pack in different types of builds and different color schemes, just to see how everything looks and how everything combines with like the base game stuff. So that's what we're doing here as well. But this one's definitely more of a darker aesthetic, and I'm obsessed, like I said, with the purple. I just think that that came out really pretty. So up here, when you go upstairs, we have the living room. So the floor plan for this house is a little weird, of course, because we have that apothecary room downstairs, but that actually kind of makes this house very characteristic, I feel. It's kind of whimsical that way, and I really like it. I, by the way, wasn't necessarily thinking of these Sims as fairies. I think they're just They're just apothecary sims essentially. Like they're very close to nature in that sense, but they're not necessarily fairies, I don't think. Maybe one of them aspires to become a fairy, or maybe their toddler grows up to, you know, want to become a fairy. That's obviously definitely possible as well. So yeah, I'm not sure how that storyline's going to play out, but it's kind of fun to think about. And then here you can see that we have the living room. That's just very simple. We have a couple of couches and then a cute chair in the corner. I didn't place a TV or anything in this house because I just didn't really think it would fit the vibe, so I didn't end up doing that. But we do have a bunch of bookcases. I feel like these Sims would definitely be into reading in their spare time, and they would just enjoy that a lot as well. And since this house is pretty crammed, I really wanted there to be enough space for routing still. So I didn't actually end up cluttering it up too much because, like I said, I still wanted there to be enough space for walking around as well. The only bathroom upstairs here, by the way, ended up being a Jack and Jill because that would just make the most sense for the floor plan. So in between this first bedroom, which I imagine to be for the parents' sibling that is staying, or I guess permanently living probably here, and using this this smaller single bed bedroom. So that's theirs. So there is a Jack and Jill in between that links to the parents' bedroom that is a little bit more spacious than this one. At first I wanted to turn this into an office, but then I reminded myself that I actually had an office downstairs already, so I decided to go for a third bedroom, which makes this house pretty functional for like families as well. So you could definitely have a couple of Sims here, maybe even 2 parents and like 2 kids or something. That would definitely work out. I think the other rooms are a little bit too small to actually create shared bedrooms for kids, but I mean, with bunk beds you still could, so you could fit quite a couple of Sims actually in this smaller house, which was very surprising to me. But this bedroom over here is obviously the parents' bedroom with a double bed and then just a dresser and a mirror and a little chair in the corner. I love the green and orange in here. I think that orange swatch for the wallpaper is absolutely gorgeous. It is one of the newer wallpapers. I'm using all of the newer wallpapers, I think, from this pack in this house. And they're really nice. Like the pastel colors are so pretty. You can see that the one that I'm using here in the toddler's room actually has blue and then like slight hints of purple, which obviously blends perfectly with the rest of the color scheme for this house, so that was really fun to see. But look how cute that toddler's bed is. Isn't that just the most adorable thing? And then of course I had to use the toy box as well, the little acorn toy box. And I actually decided to go for a little accent wall in here because I cannot stop using that really pretty wallpaper in here. I just think that that is so gorgeous. So in this room, I obviously wanted there to be a few toys at least for the toddler. So we have a toy box and a Blarfy. And some blocks, I think, yeah, I placed some blocks on the floor, and then just a mirror and some knickknacks, some toddler items to make this room a little bit more realistic looking. And I actually reminded myself to place a potty in this room as well. So we actually did end up having a potty in here, which is going to be great for gameplay. And then I just cluttered up the dresser a little bit with a couple of knickknacks, but then that's it for this build. So let's jump into the game and I'll show you the build in real time. So I built the house over here on this lot in the Spruceberry Grove neighborhood. So it's over here on the corner and it's just a gorgeous place. And here we have the apothecary in the game. It's actually across from a little playground area, which would be perfect if you have kids in this house. And my sim, of course, decided to go and grill a whole bunch of food. I don't know why, but it is nice to have this across from the house. This neighborhood in general is just absolutely stunning. Over here is a little plant shop, as you can see. So you can shop for gardening and live houseplant supplies over here. There's a bar as well, which is absolutely stunning. Over here is a little bookshop. You can actually donate books here that you have in your inventory or purchase used books, which I think is such a fun little thing. And then over here is that apothecary area where the man is not here at the moment, but he'll probably show up at some point. And then back here is a really beautiful stream where you can actually swim. And I think down here somewhere you can actually fish. Yeah, down here you can actually do some fishing, which is really nice. I think that this actually might be my favorite neighborhood. Look at this lot too. What the heck? That is so pretty. But yeah, back to my little build. I feel like it blends right in though. I will say, like, color scheme wise, I feel like it really works. It's very overgrown. We have a lot of plants on the roof, but also growing up the side of the house. In the back, it's not a whole lot going on, but we do have a lot of like wisteria and vines growing going here as well. So out front, we just have a lot of decorative debug stuff. This little decorative stall, which, like I said, is not actually functional. We can only hire a vendor for it. And then on this side, I have some picnic tables with some plants and a gardening area. There's also a fairy house here. So if you are playing in this build with fairies, then there is a little fairy house for them. And this tree trunk item is just, it's just so pretty. On the side here, we have a little porch with a pergola and then a 4-seater table to just hang out. And this area right here is a little random. It is just a porch with some planter pots and a couple of bar stools and some counters. I was kind of imagining that maybe you could like open this window and then you would have some bar seating that's like connected to the kitchen on the inside. But then over here, we actually have the front door into the apothecary little shop. So over here we have some counter space with just a bunch of knickknacks like apothecary clutter. I also placed a frog that actually matches the color scheme. I didn't do that on purpose, but that's kind of funny. And then I cluttered up these shelves here with a bunch of debug cures and potions and little ingredients and plants to really make it look like a little apothecary shop. How many times have I said the word apothecary in this video? I think it's going to be an insane amount. There's some seating over here, and then over here is the actual skill building area. So your Sims can practice apothecary here, and then there's just some complimentary like decorations and storage and everything over here as well. Then over here is actually a bookcase door. It's very secretive, and then you enter into the residential space. So there's a hallway with a staircase here, and then this archway leads you into the kitchen. I really like how this kitchen looks. The purple and green, it just has my whole heart. So the kitchen has everything your Sims would need. There's another one of those really beautiful bookcases here as well, and then a 4-seater dining area. And then over here we have a little office with the flower press item. So that's a fun thing to do for your Sims as well. And then they just have a little reading nook in here. Going upstairs, this is where you'll find the living room. The purple couches are just everything to me. I love them so much. I also placed a grandfather clock in the corner. I thought that was a nice addition to have here. And then we have a matching chair. Everything is very matchy-matchy in this house. That's definitely what I was going for. This first door over here leads you into the extra bedroom, which I think could be for the sibling staying here for longer periods of time or maybe permanently living here. There is a Jack and Jill in between these bedrooms, and then over here is the parents' room. This one's very orange and green. I really like that bright orange. It's just such a nice splash of color, and they just have a dresser and some items in the room here. This is again that dragon swatch rug that is absolutely gorgeous. Is that the same one I used in the kitchen? Yeah, I used it in here as well. It's just so pretty. And then last but not least is, of course, the toddler's bedroom. That little bed is just so cute. And then they have some decorations in here. Again, the fairy freezer bunny has my whole heart, some toys and whatnot. But that is actually it for this build. So you can't download it off the gallery just yet, but when the pack comes out, I will obviously run to upload all my early access builds to the gallery, so then you'll be able to grab it. But that's gonna do it for today's video, so I really hope that you enjoyed this one. You can obviously go ahead and follow me over on Instagram if you'd like. My username on there is SimmerySims. If you're not subscribed to my channel already, feel free to do so, and if you'd like to get notified every time I upload, just click that little bell icon. I also live stream over on Twitch a few times a week, so if you're interested in that, go ahead and give me a follow over on twitch.tv/SimmerySims. So I just want to say thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all in my next video. Bye!